Well, welcome everyone to Bob Sulick's private cooking lesson. We have a cozy group of 9 right now. So we're so happy that you could join us for this virtual event. We're so grateful to Bob for opening his personal kitchen to all of you. We're in for a real treat. The menu sounds incredible, and I feel like right after this, I'm going to have to dash to my kitchen so I can remake something or grab something else to eat because we're going to be so hungry. But the way that this event will work is that I will start with an introduction of Bob, and he will be cooking and work on techniques and different summer feasts. And during this event, feel free to ask questions. There's a raising your hand feature, or you can just kind of wave to Stephanie and I, and we will make sure that your question is answered. And I should also introduce Stephanie Maringer. She's my colleague. She works in the alumni office like myself. And so without further ado, I'm going to start by sharing Bob's very illustrious biography. So Bob Sulick is a 1978 graduate from the College of Worcester, where he majored in studio art, focusing on ceramics and ceramic sculpture. After graduation, he was the bartender at the famous Cocha House, and so I know we all know that place, for a year before leaving to work in Huntington, Massachusetts, where he assisted in producing Japanese ceremonial tea pieces. Bob has always had an interest in the culinary arts and enrolled at the Culinary Institute of America, graduating in 1982. Following graduation, he worked at the famous Cavi's restaurant here in Manchester, Connecticut, where he was part of a kitchen team that became the first restaurant outside of the New York metro region to garner 3 stars from the New York Times in 1983. In 1985, Bob was the first chef and teacher at the new Connecticut Culinary Institute, where he spent 4 years as VP and Director of Education before being hired in 1989 by Marriott. Bob was the corporate executive chef for Marriott Contract Servicers and ultimately Sedesco, and retired almost 30 years of service in 2018. Meanwhile, in 2004, his wife Danita founded and began operating Mulberry Street, which is a casual dining restaurant in Manchester, Connecticut. And in 2007, Mulberry Street moved to its current location. This year, in 2021, marks the 17th anniversary of Mulberry Street, where Bob now focuses on pastry, desserts, plumbing, electrical work, dishwashing, and all the other stuff that no one else wants to do. Bob and his wife have 3 kids who all have a hand in the restaurant, and they have a 6-year-old grandson, Grayson, who is the light of their lives. So join me in welcoming Bob to this private cooking demo.
I didn't think you were going to say all that stuff.
I give you a shout out.
Thanks for crying out loud. I wrote that, but I'm still living on the history of stuff from 1983, as you can probably tell. So anyway, well, welcome to everybody that's out there. It's nice to have some friends from Worcester. It's funny, when I went to Worcester, I went to a high school here in Connecticut called Avon Old Farms, and six of us, it was an all boys school, showed up in Worcester in the fall of 74. And we all continue to see each other, and we go to alumni reunions both in high school and college. Al Spencer, Barry Wilson, Ned Thompson, Jeff Bell, me, I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, Joni Blanchard, who happened to be the daughter of our librarian. So she ended up coming out there with us too. So Pat Hurley is another one. Pat lives right around the corner from me, so I see him quite often. So anyway, we're going to do an easy menu today. It's not very complicated because it's summertime. And we put together a menu that I think you'll find it's easy to duplicate. And we're going to talk about techniques and how to watch food without having to read a recipe. If you're reading a book while you're cooking, that takes away a little bit of the fun. So what I'd like to do is show you how to cook without reading the book. We aren't going to use any measuring cups or anything like that, no measuring spoons. We're not baking. When you do baking, you have to be a little bit more specific. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through this menu and we're gonna go step by step, but let me walk you through what it is exactly. First dish we're going to do is gonna be a grilled chicken dish. What I call a chicken paillard, which is a pounded out thin chicken breast. And we're gonna grill it, but we're gonna marinate it first in rosemary and mustard and olive oil. So if we were all in person here, it would be a lot easier for everybody to see this. My wife is gonna assist me. That's who just walked by, Danita.
Hi there.
Good to see you. The reason the corn wasn't cooking a little early is because it was out of gas, so I put a new tank of gas on.
Thank you.
Here's a chicken breast, boneless chicken breast. There's always a little piece of the thigh that goes on here. We're gonna take a boning knife and I'm gonna trim it off. And we've done this for about 8 chicken breasts. Because there's nobody here to eat it, we're gonna end up eating this all week long. There's usually a piece of the cartilage here that comes off the backbone. So we're gonna trim that up. Could you get me a piece of saran wrap so I can pound this out a little bit? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay all these chicken breasts down. And we're gonna pound them a little bit to flatten them out. And the reason we do that, do we have a mallet here? No. Okay. Now, if anybody has questions while we're doing this, just go ahead and ask. We're listening on the computer, and then Marae and Stephanie can also assist with questions and stuff like that. Here's a meat mallet. I'm sure all of you have one at home. I've had this about 40 years. I don't know where I got it, but it works really, really well. This is a more common one. Looks like something from medieval times. We're going to get a piece of saran wrap. Plastic wrap does a couple things. One, it keeps the juice from splattering all over the place. And when you're working with chicken, you want things to stay clean. You really got to hit it hard. There's one fat part of the chicken, the top part here, that's pretty thick. You got to break the fibers down. Let's call it that. It's nice and flat. And they cook more evenly when they're flat like this. So there's 4 more here. You've got a thin kitchen table, you'll go right through it with this. So you got to do it on a solid surface. Now, when I work with chicken, once I'm done with the chicken, this cutting board is going to go into the sink, and we're not going to use it for anything else until it's been cleaned. Now, this is a very simple recipe. And I think the most important thing about this recipe is that what you don't want to do is overcook the chicken. Chicken should be cooked almost like you're cooking an egg, almost like you're poaching an egg. When the chicken hits about 170, 180 degrees, all those proteins start to solidify. If it gets above 200 degrees, all the moisture in the chicken is going to boil out. It's going to turn to steam, and the steam is going to make it tough, and it's going to dry it out because it's going to evaporate. So when you cook it, chicken, you want to be very careful about how hot you want to get it at any point in the cooking process. So a little bit of olive oil. You don't need a lot. All you're trying to do is to give something to the chicken that allows it to get on the grill and not stick. It has a little bit of flavor. And a good tablespoon Dijon mustard. And I always like to put in some coarse mustard as well. So now, marinades are up to you. You can do almost anything with it. If you want to put Italian dressing on it, you can do that. If you want to do something with barbecue sauce, you can do it without. If you do anything that has sugar in it, like a barbecue sauce, for example, you are going to have a tendency to get very dark chicken, or the sugar is going to cook very quickly. And if you're cooking on a grill outside and your grill is really hot, that has a tendency to do that as well. Now, so we're just going to marinate these now. For the sake of the class, we're going to cook these right away or within the next hour or so. But if you want to make these and put them in overnight in the refrigerator, that's good. You'll get a little bit of flavor that gets inside the chicken. But we're just going to toss it nicely.
So it's just olive oil and mustard?
Just olive oil and mustard. You notice how carefully I measured it. And oh, we're going to put some rosemary in it too. Thank you, Chad.
Salting the chicken before it goes on the grill or after? Before.
What was, I didn't hear your question. What was it?
Salt.
Oh, salt and pepper?
Before.
Some people put it on before, some people put it on after, some people wait till they put it at the table. I usually don't put salt on. There's a misconception that salt dries food out. You'd have to put a lot of salt onto a piece of meat in order for the salt itself to do the drying. Salt is good. I have a tendency to like it a little bit more if I'm cooking a piece of steak like beef or pork. The meat seems to hold up better, but you know, it's 6 of one, a half dozen of the other. It's up to you to decide how you want to do that. So, okay. Can you, that cutting board's clean, I'm going to need that back. Rosemary. I need the cutting board back so I can cut them. Thank you. All right, now, here's my rosemary plant. I didn't kill it this winter. Usually I kill the rosemary in the winter by leaving it outside, but I stuck it in the garage this year and it didn't get too cold, so it didn't die. I'm just pulling off some nice branches of rosemary. Rosemary is a funny herb because it's got a lot of flavor to it. Anybody that's ever been to, you know, Napa Valley or to the Provence in France, any place where it's Mediterranean warm, rosemary grows like a hedge. It's a weed. And it grows everywhere. But rosemary has some texture to it. It's a little bit tough. So you want to cut it up pretty fine. You don't want to end up with a mouthful of toothpicks.
And yellow Gangbridge machine. Oh, wow, that was a message.
There's a famous soap. We're on our honeymoon in Bermuda called Banadas. It's made with rosemary. It smells really nice. All right. Not too much rosemary. I put about for 8 chicken breasts, I put about a good heavy teaspoon of minced rosemary in with that. If you want to use dry rosemary, you can. Dry rosemary, the stuff you buy in the jar, isn't going to be nearly as flavorful, so you have to use more. It's also dry, so it's like little needles in your food. So I'm not a big fan of the dry stuff. There are applications for dried herbs that are different than applications for fresh herbs. And we grow a lot of herbs here at the house. We use them at our restaurant. Right now I have mint, parsley, lemon balm, rosemary, thyme. We have a couple of different kinds of thyme, a couple of different kinds of sage. They all grow very easily in a garden. You put them in the worst part of the garden with a lot of rocks around them. The rocks are important because they absorb sun, and you will keep your herbs growing all the way deep into the winter, and then they start earlier. And because most of them are perennials, parsley's not, but all the others are. If you protect them and you keep them in a warm area, they'll grow really well all winter, you know, until it really snows or goes down below 0 for a few days. Okay, so let's take the chicken. I'm going to put it off to the side, and when we get a little closer to dinner time, I'm going to have my lovely wife Denise to do the honors on the grill. Okay, now we've got a couple of things that we're going to be making. The second dish is going to be green beans with tomatoes, and so we need to cook the green beans off. And I've got a pot of water over here that's boiling, a nice rolling boil. Green vegetables. When you cook green vegetables, make believe they're spaghetti. You do the exact same thing. A lot of water. You put a big handful of salt in. You don't have to put salt in, but I put salt in, and that's the classic traditional way to do it. By the way, I didn't know I'd look so good with shorts on TV. So this water is a rolling boil right now. It's really, really turning over. And I've got all these green beans that I trimmed up this morning. And I'm not a dietitian. I spent 30 years working with dietitians. They seem to like all of their vegetables to the point where you're crunchy. Green beans to me are something that should be cooked enough so that they have, they're a little bit on the soft side. I like them cooked. So we're gonna dump them in the boiling water. They're gonna take a few minutes to cook. And what we're gonna do with the green beans, we're gonna make a nice saute with them. This is a shallot. That's the biggest shallot I've ever seen. Shallot's a member of the onion family. I'm gonna cut the top and bottom off and we're gonna trim it up. I really like using shallots. We certainly use onions for a lot of things and scallions and all the other members of the onion family, but I like shallots a lot. They have a different flavor. They're great when you caramelize them, and that's what we're gonna do with this dish. So first you take the skin, take the covering off, take the skin off it. Now, real sharp knife.
40 seconds, Erickson, just 34.
Cut this in half, and then we're going to cut this into what we call a julienne. A julienne is a long, skinny piece, like a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by about 2 inches. It's as long as the onion is really. We're going to put this over on the side. I have a lot of onion, a lot of shallots here, so this is going to be a shallot heavy dish. We'll put that off to the side and forget about that for a second. And then we're going to use these cherry tomatoes. These are called flavor bombs. They taste good. That's just a marketing term. And all we're going to do is take these off the stems. And I'm going to rinse them off so they're clean. If there's any dust or dirt on them. This would be great in the summer. If you grow tomatoes, everybody has a cherry tomato plant, and they grow very easily and they're prolific. They grow forever and they don't stop. Can you rinse those off for me? Oh, great. All right, now, one other thing that I want to start cooking before we get too far along is for our dessert. Our dessert today is going to be ice cream with strawberries and a balsamic glaze on it, balsamic vinegar for glaze. In order to get it to the glaze, we need to boil it, and we need to reduce it. So this is about 1.5 cups, 2 cups of balsamic vinegar. There's dark balsamic, there's white balsamic. This is the dark stuff, which is the more common one. This is the one that you see most of the time. This will fill your kitchen with the smells of an Italian restaurant. Works great. We're just going to bring that up to a boil. It'll probably take about 10 minutes to get down to a thickened state. Now, what you have to be careful with balsamic vinegar is it goes from being liquidy to a glaze. After about 10 minutes, it goes from liquid to glaze in about 15 seconds. If you miss it and you keep cooking it, you'll burn it very easily. Some people put a little sugar in it, but I think it has enough natural sweetness to carry itself. And we're just going to put it down. We're going to get this thing down to a real thick state, and that's going to be put on top of our strawberries and our ice cream. So we're going to do that right now. Now, sauteed pan. Once the green beans get cooked, then I'll put the sauteed.
Somebody asked a question and they're very low.
Who has a question and I can't hear you?
Did somebody ask a question?
No, everybody's good?
Yeah, I can't hear you. Maybe it was
All
somebody
right,
else.
Stephanie, you hear anybody ask? If you hear somebody, let me know. Okay, let's give our green beans a stir. Now, what we're gonna do is once these green beans, remember, we're gonna cook them again in a frying pan with shallots and with our cherry tomatoes. So they're gonna get hot again. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna boil these to the point where let's call it 90% cooked. And they're boiling away right now. They've been in there about 5 minutes. They're still a little bit chewy. They taste good though. So I spent 30 years working in nursing homes and hospitals in their food. If the green beans came to the table and there was any green left in them, they were not cooked enough. But for me, I like them to be somewhere in between that. All right, let's talk a little bit about the salad that we're going to make. And I think this is the star of the meal that we're going to make today. Say that again. I heard a noise. The corn salad that we're going to make is kind of neat. If you're familiar with the word ceviche, which is usually uncooked fish, raw fish that is marinated in an acid, so vinegar, lemon juice, lime juice, and it's very popular in Hispanic cooking and things that go in that area. It's a way to preserve or cook food without any refrigeration. There's lots of ways people over the course of history have had to use techniques in order to preserve their food. If you marinate something in a vinegar or an acid, that cooks it. Technically, it cooks it just like heat, and that preserves it. You could smoke it, you could salt it, you can dry it out. There's lots of ways to preserve food without using refrigeration. And that's the technique we're going to use for this corn. So what we're going to do is we took 4 ears of corn, and I did this ahead of time because if you do this right now, it's going to be too hot to handle. Basically, 4 ears of corn. And by the way, when our local corn comes out, this is really a great dish. And we put it on the grill and we cooked it till it was picked up some nice color. I turned the grill on high, put it right on the grill the way it is, unhusked, and let it cook until it's brown. However, that's 4 pieces. I've also got, are we doing more than one or just one? We've also got an ear that is not cooked. This is the one that we're going to put in a ceviche, lime juice. So we're going to make it. So take your knife. This gets very messy. You'll have corn all over your floor by the time you're done. And if you got dogs, maybe they'll eat it. I don't know. Don't let your children take it. We're going to cut this off. Now, in the restaurant business, you don't throw anything away. This raw corn husk, put this in a pot. When if you're in a restaurant, you probably have about 20 of them. Cover it with some milk and boil it for a little while and use that milk to make corn chowder. Corn gives off an awful lot of flavor. When it's fresh and it's sweet, there's a lot of sugar in it, which is why my doctor won't let me eat it. But it's something that we use all the time, and we make sure we boil it and we use it. So we make a corn stock out of it. All right, let's put this in the bowl. Now, so we're going to have about 3/4 cooked corn and 1/4 uncooked corn, but it'll be marinated in lime juice. Now, let's take a look at our green beans. We don't want to forget these. And by the way, the balsamic vinegar, this will clear up the sinuses. It's boiling away just what we wanted it to be. The green beans are good. So what do you do with them now? If you were going to serve them right away, you could probably throw them in the frying pan. You're going to make probably a spattering mess if you had oil going in the frying pan with the shallots and threw the green beans in with the water on them. So we're going to take them over to the sink and we're just going to shock them by pouring cold water on them.
Hey, Bob,
Yes.
do you rinse your pasta in cold water as soon as it's done boiling as well?
No, if you know what, there's sort of we cook our pasta a little bit ahead of time, meaning during the day, somebody cooks off 10 pounds or so. We cook it extremely al dente. In fact, to some people, you wouldn't even notice that it's cooked, but it cooks it a little bit. We shock that in cold water. But then when we take it, what that does is shortens the cooking time for service. So when somebody makes a pasta dish on the line and they're sauteing it, when they add the pasta to whatever it is, the sauces, they'll let that cook for a little while right on the line. But if we boil pasta and you're going to use it right away, we actually use some of the pasta water to keep it moist. A little bit of the pasta water goes into that. A lot of restaurants will have a pot on the stove that's just for cooking pasta. And over the course of the evening, that water turns into almost like a soup of starch. And some chefs will use that as a little bit of a liquefier for their pasta. So that's what we usually do.
Can I answer that?
Let my wife answer a question. She has some
All right.
input.
If you're gonna cook your pasta at home, you don't wanna rinse it. You rinse off all of the starch agents, which makes the sauce adhere to your pasta. That's why a lot of people do add pasta water too, to dishes. And you'll notice because they want it to suck in. So they want it to stick to the sauce.
That's
and-
really good to know. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, but we do it at the restaurant for ease of preparation, because otherwise we don't really have enough burners to be cooking pasta while and plus we do takeout as well, so it's just too busy. So,
All right.
Thank you.
We worked in a restaurant once together. She worked there 25 years. And the owner decided one year to start cooking pasta to order. It was the biggest fiasco that I've ever seen. It was a very, very good restaurant. But it would take 15 minutes to cook anybody's pasta dish. And when somebody just wants a side of spaghetti, the world was coming to an end. Okay, so let's look at our ingredients for our corn salad. We've got our corn. This is the raw corn. And I'm going to put our lime juice in here. Let's squeeze about 3 of them in here. Limes are notorious for being hard to squeeze. So if you've got a, huh? Oh, my wife has a trick.
I always have tricks.
She's a better chef than me.
Tongs, take your tongue. You don't really want to, I mean, if you don't have a juicer, and certainly that is the better way to go. But if you're in a cook.
I never saw this before.
we
This
do
is the first time.
all the time.
I'm 64 and I've never seen this. Very good, honey. Okay.
And these are dry, really.
By the way, in the recipes that are posted, I call them Persian limes. I did that on purpose because people are always asking me, can you make a key lime pie? We do key lime pies all the time, but I've never used key limes because you can't find them. Persian limes are just the generic name for all the limes that you've ever seen in the supermarket, and they work perfectly fine. If you really want them to come out juicy, if you're making a cake or something and you have to have a lot of juice, if you put them in the microwave for a second, put them in for about 30 seconds and then roll them, they give up a lot more juice. And they don't really change flavor. Balsamic. This is very strong. It's getting down where I'm going to turn it off because we still got a little ways to go before dessert time. I'm just going to put it on the back of the stove and turn it off. All right. All right. So is there enough lime juice in here?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit soupy. It's got the lime juice in it. Let me get it close. You can see the corn. You can't really see the lime juice because it's clear, but it's got good lime juice in it. And then we're going to cut. Now I cut these shallots, and some of them are going to be used for the salad and some of them are going to be used for my green beans. So we got a nice handful of shallots. Okay, here, let's get rid of all these green beans. And
I'm going to get rid of the limes.
the limes, I'm sorry. Okay, we're going to put some red pepper in this salad. Red pepper is great. 90% of the time when you use red pepper, it's for color. And that's what we're using it for. So I'm just going to take the stem and the seed out and pull some of that little white stuff off. And we're just going to cut it into a small dice. For the amount that we're making, a half a pepper is going to be plenty. Put this here, that's for our green beans. I'm putting the green bean pan on because we're going to start to cook our shallots in a minute for the green beans. All right, so we slice that through, and then we're just going to cut this into a small dice. When I was was in culinary school, we would go through our classes and the chefs would come around with a measuring tape and they would measure everything to make sure it was the right size. And I graduated in 1982, so 40-something years ago. Have never in my entire history of cooking ever seen anybody measure the dice again, so don't get too worried about it if it's a little big or a little small. What's important when you're cooking vegetables or you're cooking food and you're using knife cuts is if you're cooking something, it's good to cut everything in the same size if you need to cook everything together. That way everything cooks evenly. That's really the most important thing about it. All right. Did you put the hot peppers in there?
No, I just.
Oh, all right. Now.
Show them, but I was showing you how small they have to be.
Okay, now, the next thing we have 2 peppers here. A jalapeno and a serrano. They do exactly the same thing. They are both hot and they both add heat to something, and there's really not too much of a difference in flavor. But I will tell you this. The heat comes from, not from the green part. The heat comes from all of this white stuff here and all of the seeds. And if you want to eat those, you're more than welcome to. If you want to leave them in, you're more than welcome to. I like to take them out because I don't need the agita. But if it's up to you to have, depending on how hot you want to make it. But we put a little bit in. We don't put the seeds in. We clean it out. And I think everybody probably knows. So we're going to put a little of each in.
You don't have to. You can use one or the other. Any kind of chili, you know, you can use a poblano. This does call for a serrano or a jalapeno, but it all depends on how hot you want it. So, and again, you control how much you put in. Cut those in half. That's more than enough.
That's more than enough. So we're going to put all that in there.
Salt and pepper.
Okay, olive oil.
Nope, just salt and pepper. You don't have to see each, so you just want the lime juice.
Okay, so pepper, salt. Salt is an interesting flavor. It's not, people will tell you all the time, if you're trying to eat healthy, I guess, they say put lemon juice on it or put some herb mixture on it. It has a completely different flavor than salt. Salt tastes like salt. It's a very important flavoring agent in almost any kind of cooking. It's in a lot of things that you wouldn't expect it to be in. It's in a lot of baked goods. But it's up to you, and it's depending on how you want to eat, depending on how much you put in. I don't put a lot in. So the salt will help draw out the moisture from the peppers and the corn. So remember this mixture that has the lime juice in it, and you can put more lime juice in it if you want. You can put more olive oil in when you get it made. This is going to marinate, and that's going to cause that corn and those onions and those peppers and the salt in there is going to pull the moisture out of all of those vegetables. So it's making itself into a dressing. This dish, I've always thought it tasted better the second day, but it's a great colorful dish in the middle of the summer, and it goes really, really well with the chicken and the green beans that we're making. So, another way to look at what we're doing today is you've got this dish, which I think has some Southwestern flavors, some Hispanic flavors, and then the grilled chicken is certainly sort of an American dish. The green beans are probably as classical a French dish as you're going to see in normal cooking. And then the dessert has some Italy in it. So we went around to a lot of places in this menu. So let's put this off to the side. And then in a little while, we're going to take the corn and we're going to clean this off and add that to it. So put that over there. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to first clean up a little bit here. I hand this to you. Okay. So the next thing, green beans. Let's get our saute pan going. We use gas here. We have a tank in the back for propane. There are 3 houses here on our street that don't have natural gas. We've been fighting with the gas company for the last 5 years trying to get some, and they seem not want to do it for us. So we work on propane. It works perfectly fine and does a good job. I use an electric gas combination oven. The electric heat is quick. It's even, and then it has a gas. It has a gas pilot and a gas burner in it as well. And it's a convection oven. We use convection cooking, which is a fan that blows the heat around.
Does propane burn hotter than natural gas?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Well, it does, because if you've ever welded a pipe, you'll find out how hot propane can get. In the scope of things, they have different ways to control the gas that comes to your stove. If you have a propane tank, you have to get a different hookup, but it's a little bit hotter. But in the scope of things, it's really not that much difference. Okay. All right, our pan is hot. A little olive oil. Shallots. Now, if I want to make this dish, get me a little butter out of there. I want these shallots to be nice and brown. I cook with a lot of olive oil. We cook with peanut oil and things like that as well. But olive oil and peanut oil, olive oil has a low smoking temperature, so we don't want to burn it. If we decided to use peanut oil, it gets a lot hotter, but it's kind of wasted calories. If I want to brown the onions, I'm going to add a little bit of whole butter to it. The butter will brown it very, very quickly, and it adds a little bit of nutty flavor to the food. So, you don't have any butter? We have no butter.
I have olive oil.
So that's good. As you can hear, cooking is a hobby that uses all the senses. And one of the things we teach kids when they learn to cook is that the noise that you hear, the sounds of cooking mean a lot and have a lot to do with how your food's coming out. So when I hear something sizzling in a pan, that means one thing. Believe it or not, when we make cake, we do a lot of baking at our restaurant, and the sound of the mixer will tell you when the frosting is done. And we make a very popular coconut cake. And one of the ways I tell our cooks when they make the frosting is to listen to the mixer. And when the mixer goes from a whine to a grind, and you'll hear it because the motors are different. And it might be different in another restaurant, but for us, it works. But you have to listen all the time. You have to see things, you have to hear things, and that works well. Okay, while these onions, they're already starting to brown up a little bit. We want these nice and brown. I'm gonna cut some, Danita's already made some cherry tomatoes. We're gonna sweat those off along with the shallots. This is a really good dish. I eat a lot of vegetarian stuff. Sometimes I'll just have a meal of all vegetables. We do it a lot here. And this is one of my favorite dishes kind of as a main course. I just eat green beans and shallots and tomatoes together. It really makes a nice dish. My doctor told me not to eat any more potatoes, bread, or pasta, so I got to eat vegetables. Seems to be working. All right, tomatoes.
What do those doctors know anyway?
Here.
Dump those in there. Very good. Just a touch more oil. It's getting a little dry. All right, now, next thing. Here's the green beans. Take a look at them. Now, they're not bright green. They're I don't want to call them olive green, but they're a little darker than normal, but they are not chewy. When you eat these, you're going to bite through them and they're going to taste good. If you go to France and cook in classical restaurants, they cook their vegetables. I had a gentleman, Glenn Thomas, who worked with me for a long time, who spent a lot of time in Juan Lapan down in the Riviera. And he one time made a whole meal for us out of artichokes, appetizers, entrees, and even the dessert was artichokes. And everything was cooked significantly. It wasn't crispy. You can cook crispy, but you can cook it like this as well. And I think you'll enjoy this. This is a nice way to cook green beans. James Beard had a very famous dessert that he used to make. And it was a sweet asparagus tart. And it was a custard made with asparagus and eggs and sugar, just like a creme brulee, but he pureed asparagus in it and then put pieces of asparagus in it. And I made it once. It was pretty good. I don't think you're going to see it on the menu at McDonald's, but it tasted great. It was different. All right, take a look at these. Look how quick they cook. See the color? The smell is great. So we want to take it down to the point where the tomatoes have blistered and they're starting to cook down. You could stop it right now, but I like them when they cook like this. So we're gonna put them in there. And the green beans are going in. Now remember, your green beans are cold, and they've got water all over them, so they're gonna take a second to come back up to a simmer.
Is that a non-stick skillet you're using?
Yeah. You don't have to use it. We use everything. You know what we use? What the most important thing that I've learned in cooking, you just use whatever's clean.
It's a good rule of thumb.
We use what's clean. We have a ton of pots. Danita and I have been married 30, how many years? 33?
34.
34 years. And we seem to buy a lot of pots for birthdays. And so we have a good size collection. And then of course at the restaurant, you have a ton of pots. So whatever's around, we like nonstick for the, you know what, we cook eggs in the morning or something, and we don't like to use a lot of oil or butter with the eggs. So we use a nonstick skillet. I was into crepes for a while, so I was making crepes all the time, and you need a nonstick skillet to really do that well. If you're just doing it casually and you don't have one pan just for crepes. I have a crepe pan at work that's easy to use, but we don't have it here at home. All right, let's let that sit for a little while. Now, I'm just going to put a tablespoon of Land O'Lakes, no longer has the Indian, Land O'Lakes butter. We're just going to let that cook down a little bit. Now get a little bit brown. It'll add a little bit of richness. If you want to add something to this dish, it would be nice. You could add thyme to it or sage and give it a little bit of herby flavor. But you'll like this the way you're not going to get to eat it, but it's going to taste good. When I was younger, I could flip 2 pans at one time and not spill a drop. But those days are gone. Okay, let's take a look at what the next item is. Let's talk about getting the chicken cooked. Let me get my. Yep. Yeah, I wish we could take the computer outside, but we can't. Now, let's talk a little bit about chicken. So this has been marinating, what, about 45 minutes now. And my wife is going to go out, Danita's going to go out and cook the chicken. I haven't done anything to it. No, but I'm not done that. I have to salt and pepper the green beans. Chicken will do on the grill. Okay.
By the way, I salt in the marinade. We have different cooking styles, completely different.
I just want to show everybody how to. I want to talk about this. Take that. You get the tongue.
I need the salt.
There you go.
And then the pepper.
Yep. Okay. Danita and I used to do a small show on Channel 3 here in Hartford for about 5 years, and they used to tell us to fight. They thought it was funny. So we would always have to come up with these little incidents where we have to disagree on something. All right. Now, when it comes to chicken, the grill outside, it's a standard Weber grill. And when you put the grill on, you need to turn it on and let it get really, really hot. The biggest mistake most people make is they turn the grill on and they start cooking right away. Ours will go up to about 500, 600 degrees by letting it sit on high for about 10 minutes. It's the grill probably won't last as many years as some people might like, but it heats up the grate so that the stuff doesn't stick to it when you put it on. It also marks it. The most important thing about a grill is putting color on top of the food. You don't want to cook all of your chicken on the grill for the entire time it's there. Most of them have a little raised area in the back. That's the most important thing that I think when it comes to cooking on the grill. So Danita will go out, she'll mark the chicken on the grill, and it'll cook for a couple of minutes on each side. It'll pick up some nice marks. But that 500-degree temperature, and let's say down where the burners are coming out on top of the grill after you open it up and the heat leaves, let's call it 350 to 400 degrees. All that's going to do, especially with chicken, remember I told you to compare it to an egg. All that's going to do is dry the chicken out. You're going to cause that chicken, especially the outside of it, to get so hot that it's going to get very, very tough. It's not going to have any moisture to it. So what we do is we mark it on the grill, and then we take it and we put it up on top. Now, usually when we're cooking something on the grill, like the chicken or a hamburger or a steak or fish, we're doing other stuff as well. So I cook and mark the chicken first, and then I put it up on the top. Steaks take a little longer. You leave them on a little longer. I put then everything up on that top level, and then I'll cook the other stuff on the bottom, and I will close the top of the grill on it. So you're turning it into an oven. And that's how you let the chicken cook. And you watch for the little white liquid to start coming out of the chicken edges and stuff. That's how you want to cook your chicken. Your chicken will be much moister. Now, right before you serve it, I'll take it and I'll put it back on the grill to get it hot again, or get it really hot again, just to freshen it up a little bit, especially with a steak. But I rarely leave the food on the hot part of the grill for longer than a few minutes on each side. Especially if you're doing something very, very thick, like a tenderloin or a large piece of meat or a whole chicken. Some people cook a whole chicken on the grill. That needs to be put somewhere where it's down in the 300 to 325 degree range. You got to put it somewhere, even turn off the back burner. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. So we're not grilling the chicken on the grill until it dries. We're cooking it till it gets its marks, and then we're putting it on the raised area and letting it finish cooking up on top of that. So.
So does your grill have a thermometer on it?
Yes, it does.
Do you use it?
No, you mean where you put it into the food?
No, where it just touches the thermometer that tells you how hot it is.
Yeah,
inside.
it's on the front, and
Right.
that's when it goes up, and I go out and I watch it, and it goes up in temperature.
So do you have a target temperature for chicken on that back raised part that you want the oven to be, sort of?
You can't even control it. All you do is turn the grill. I leave the grill on high. I turn it on high, and if it looks like the chicken's thick and it's gonna take a little while, the chicken we're doing today, because we pounded it out thin, is gonna cook very, very quickly. In fact, it's probably gonna cook in 2 or 3 minutes. It just isn't gonna take very long. But I just watch it. And once you open that grill up and you put that chicken on the top, you're losing all your heat. So when you close it back, the heat will come up again. You just let it sit there for a while. You have to do a little experimenting. You'll have to come over, Scott, and we'll work through this.
That's what I was fishing for.
Yeah, I knew it. All right.
Hi, Scott Wilson.
Scott Wilson. Yes.
Hi, Scott.
Hi.
So Scott Wilson and I met the first weekend of the College of Worcester when I was a freshman. And Scott is from Massillon, Ohio. And anybody that's a football fan will know about the history of Massillon, Ohio football. And I come from Connecticut here, where on a good day, if there's a high school football game and there are 200 people in the stands, that's considered a big crowd. And Scott said to me, our first weekend in Worcester, you want to go see a football game? I said, sure. So we took a ride to Massillon, and there was nobody walking on any of the streets. I said, where is everybody? He goes, they're at the game. And I'm going, sure they are. So we go to Massillon, and was that at Canton, or was it at the Hall of Fame, Scott, that game?
No, that was in Massillon.
Was it Mass at Tiger Stadium?
Yep.
Well, how many people fit in that stadium?
22,500.
So I've never seen a high school football game with 22,000 people at it. And if you weren't in the stands or on the team, you were in the band. And in our restaurant, we have at this courtesy of Scott Wilson, a big Massillon sign on the side of the wall. And about, I don't know, once every 2 or 3 months, somebody will come in and go, how do you know about Massillon, Ohio? It's a good story, and it's what we want our restaurant to kind of be, for people to come and show up and ask questions like that. So, okay, our corn has been marinating now for a little while. Let's take the cooked ones here. This comes off very easy once they're cooked. You just husk it. There are tools you can find at the supermarket that will tell you they will make this very easy. A knife works just fine for me.
Did you cook that on the grill? And if so,
Yeah.
was it on that back rack up high?
No, actually, the corn we just leave. It takes so long for this corn to cook. This corn is really loaded with water. So we just put it on the grill. And it wasn't on the highest. It only takes about 5 minutes. Just keep turning it, keep moving it back and forth, just till it picks up a little bit of color. You can rub it with a little bit of olive oil if you want it to cook a little quicker, but you really don't need to. And I don't know where they get corn this time of the year. I don't know if anybody's from Florida, but maybe they grow it down there at this time of year. We're still about a couple months away from it up here. Okay. Edie, where did the rest of, oh, is over there? I'll get it. This is the first time we've ever done a virtual class. I've never done this before. I spent many years teaching classes. I still remember the first class I taught. And at the end of it, after 3 hours, I said, I have a great respect for teachers of any kind now, because that was hard work. Then there was the time at the Connecticut Culinary where we advertised a sushi class. The teacher didn't show up, so I had to teach it. And I walked in the class, and it was full of people from Japan who looked at me and said, I don't think this is going to work. It was all right, but it was just kind of funny. I learned to make sushi that day. All right, so we got all this corn off here. And let's mix it in with the rest of it. I'm going to use this glass bowl for this. You can see what we're doing. My wife doesn't know it, but I always add more lime juice to this when she's not looking.
Are there shallots in the beans and the corn?
Yes, there are.
Okay, great.
Is that okay? Who asked that question?
I did on Karen's behalf.
Oh, okay. Who's the farthest away on this call? Anybody in Worcester? Can people hear us, Murray, or are they muted?
Everyone should be able to hear you.
But they have to unmute themselves to talk to you.
Yeah, I know. This is the reason I retired from Sodexo's, because I was tired of Zoom meetings. All right, so let's mix this up.
Bob,
So
just a
there's-
heads up, we have about 30 minutes to go.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to leave this corn over here for a few minutes. Danita's cooking the chicken. Now, the only thing that has to be done to the chicken is put it on the grill or put it on the plate, and we have to slice it to cut it. The green beans are done. So now we're going to start putting together our dessert. We're probably going to find pieces of chicken around here for about a week. All right, so let's do our green beans and get them done and get them out of the way. I wish you could smell these. They really smell terrific. A good dish. And it's even good really like the next day cold out of the refrigerator. So
I do too. I wish I could smell it too.
yeah. All right, so let me clean this up real quick here. Okay, now, I did this dessert because it's native strawberry season here in Connecticut, and I'm sure where you guys are too. You can tell everything is getting more expensive. The strawberries this year, last year was probably $5. I paid $8 for this morning. So they've
Oh
gone
my
way up-
God.
Way up in price. It's the way of the world now. At our restaurant, one of our big dishes is chicken wings. And last year at this time, chicken wings, pre-COVID, were about $40 a case. And you get 40 pounds, so about $1 a pound. As of last week, they were $180 a case. So we've stopped selling them, which when you tell people the price, they realize that there's not a lot you can do. But it's funny because the reason that they're out is because when COVID hit and all the schools and all of the cafeterias that buy chicken breasts and chicken legs to serve people, the only reason you have wings is because people buy all the other parts too. And when those places closed, there was no demand for chicken. So the chicken farmers stopped raising chickens. And then they furloughed all their employees. So not only were there no chickens to cut, there was nobody to cut the chickens that they didn't have to cut. So it's probably going to take about 6 months for this all to come back and for us to start serving them again. But we just made the decision to stop selling them. And it hasn't really affected we still sell a lot of pizzas. So. All right, so. How are we looking? Beautiful. It's right there. Could you do me a favor and go into the freezer in the garage and get the ice cream?
I'm gonna do the corn salad.
It's done. You got that?
Cilantro, and you put cilantro in it,
Oh, I didn't put the cilantro in it.
and cheese.
And the cheese. I always put the cilantro and cheese in at the last moment. Okay, I'm putting our balsamic glaze back on. Kind of color that. And our strawberries are going to be okay. There's not a lot to do to these. I'm just going to cut them in half. I like to leave them in pieces, not too small. And Danita, you know what I need? Is a bowl with a whip that I can use to make the whipped cream. We'll put these over here. Put these away. Here is the chicken. And you see, not a lot of, they're not black, they're not overcooked, they're not dry. They're very moist. You can squeeze them and see the liquid coming out of them. So they're still very, very moist and tender, but they're cooked all the way through. Let's put them on a platter.
This are over there.
Yeah.
Finish the salad.
You what?
I finish the salad.
Yeah. And Anita is gonna finish the salad. Now, I want you to show everybody the cheese that we're using. The one up there.
Where's the other one?
Oh, it's in the back. Let's check it out. All right. So Danita is going to now add cilantro. Now cilantro is a funny herb. It's some people think it's Mexican parsley. That's not a good word for it because it really isn't, and it has nothing to do with Mexico, except that it's used in a lot of cooking in southwest part of the country. It has a soapy flavor. It's very similar in many ways to sage in its natural flavor state. But we like it. It works really well. It gives things a very fresh flavor. So we put a lot of it in, but we put it in at the very last minute because I like it to stay fresh. After it sits, especially with the lime juice, has a tendency to cook out a little bit. So it's okay.
Do a long one that's clean.
Yeah, this one's fine. Now, this is queso fresca. This is not a commercial for queso fresca, but it's semi-soft crumbling Mexican cheese, excellent on tacos, soups, beans, and salads. And it goes really well with this dish. Texturally, it's a little bit like a piece of goat cheese, but it's not goat cheese. It doesn't have the saltiness. It doesn't have the goat cheese flavor to it. It's kind of a mild cheese, but it gives texture and a little character and interest to the salad. I think if you were here, you'd like the way it comes across, and it's a nice dish.
Did you put the olive oil in here?
Nope, put a little olive oil in there,
Salt and
with
pepper?
cheese and salt and pepper.
Okay, so a little more lime.
I'm gonna run out and get the ice cream so that we can finish our dessert. Well, let me do one thing first. We're almost there. Now, the other thing you have to consider with our balsamic glaze is the fact that while it's hot on the stove, it's gonna be liquid. When that cools down to room temperature, it's gonna pick up a lot of texture. It's probably gonna be a lot thicker. It will be a lot thicker. So you have to be careful you don't go too far. So
The cheese, actually, it's a bit more like feta. It's very crumbly, like a feta would be. And it has almost no flavor at all. It's gonna take on the flavor from whatever you put in it. If you're throwing it into tacos, then your, slaw, salsa slaw, whatever is gonna help flavor it. It's mostly there for texture, in my opinion, because I don't think it has its own flavor.
okay, bowl, heavy cream. I'm gonna put about a cup in there. I'm not gonna make so much, otherwise I'll sit around tonight and eat this while I watch Law and Order. So- What, honey?
Oh, you want the silver one?
And maple syrup, real maple syrup, so we don't have sugar. I find that you can use a little less. Now, you've got ice cream in this dish, so you don't need to have whipped cream that's super sweet. It can only, let's call it two or three tablespoons full of maple syrup. When I got out of cooking school in 1982, I entered a mayonnaise contest. Hellman's Mayonnaise had a contest, and I made a recipe for a lobster salad, and you had to make it so that it was from something that you did locally. So I put nutmeg in it because we're Connecticut, and I put maple syrup in it because we have maple syrup here in New England. And I won the contest. I won $5,000. I didn't have a penny to my name at the time. And two of the people I beat were teachers at the Culinary Institute of America. They were not happy. I never made the dish. Somebody made it at the contest, and I still haven't ever made it. It was just a lobster salad, but it had some mayonnaise in it and maple syrup, just a little bit. And the best thing about it was my grandmother found out about it because the National Enquirer did an article on Still have the copy. Benita? It does not take long to whip heavy cream by hand. We've done it for 50-something years. Hey, Dee Dee, could you get me the ice cream? Okay. All right, our balsamic is good. Look at the balsamic. See how thick it is?
Beautiful,
Huh?
beautiful.
It's nice. All right. Okay.
Holly wants to know what's your favorite brand of balsamic vinegar?
The one you see, Modena, is the one you see at all the supermarkets. Now, if you get into balsamic vinegars, like some people are into wines and into olive oils and things like that, they make balsamic vinegar that you buy in the supermarket, and even the stuff that we use here, is a pretty generic brand of balsamic vinegar. They have balsamic vinegar that they age in oak barrels literally for decades, and they sell it in little tiny bottles. And what we're doing today is kind of a cheap version of what they sell in those little tiny bottles for $100. And when you use it, you put drops of it on food, almost like you're seasoning it with salt. So, but it's wonderful when you have a very floral. There's a floral flavor to it that you don't get when you do it on your own. Who's there on the screen with the McLeod tartan behind them? Ken Krantz? Is that real or is that virtual?
It's a virtual.
Is it? I like it.
Yeah, I got it off the internet.
I like it. All right. Huh?
I'm addicted to fig vinegar.
My advisor at Worcester was Dr. Mackenzie, so he was all about everything from Scotland, and whenever I see that, I think of him. All right.
I don't think that salad is quite done. I have to try it.
Okay.
And we didn't finish talking about it.
Can you put that salad onto a platter so that
Yeah, but
you can see a little bit better?
I'm gonna try it first.
Okay. All right, so we're going to assemble our dessert. If you live in Connecticut, Highland Park Ice Cream, Highland Park Market's a big supermarket chain. They're good friends of ours, so I bought their ice cream today. So okay, here's the secret to this dish. Ice cream and strawberries, native strawberries, and black pepper. This is a very Italian thing to do, a little bit of black pepper. Now, if you're in Italy or you work with somebody who's real Italian, they're going to get crushed. They're going to get whole peppercorns. They're going to break them with a pot so that they're huge chunks. So when you eat this, you're getting big whopping pieces of black pepper. That's the way they like it. A little bit of black pepper. a little bit of the glaze. My glaze got sticky. Well, I'm gonna hold off on that. And we're gonna put some maple whipped cream on top. So this is an Italian ice cream sundae, really. By the time we're done with it. And this is spearmint. It's not peppermint, grows in my garden. It's a nice, it's a little bit different. We want to use a big piece of it. And you could serve this with cookies or something if you wanted to. A little biscotti would be nice. So let's see. Can you see that okay?
Mhm.
Here's our chicken. That's our grilled chicken with rosemary and mustard. And then we have our green beans with tomatoes cooked down. That's like almost like a vegetable stew. That's terrific. That goes well with that. That's really important to the chicken. We don't have a sauce with the chicken. If you wanted to make a salsa, you could do that. But with the green beans having all that moisture and all that shallots and tomatoes all cooked together, it adds a lot of moisture. So that goes well with the chicken. And then this is our corn salad with the queso. This is great. I'll be eating this later. And then, of course, our 2 Italian sundaes that we have. So, okay, we've cooked our menu. And anybody have any questions or any thoughts they want to add to it?
What's your secret for getting everything to the table hot?
Being married. You know what? I don't worry too much about everything being perfect all at once. I will tell you this, if I'm serving like hamburgers or something that I think only tastes great, not just good, but great when it comes right off the grill. If you're not ready to eat at our house, I'm going to eat without you. But you know, it's a balance. And when you've done this as long as I have, you kind of have a knack for how things come out and when they're going to be ready and things like that. And I don't worry too much about the food being blistering hot. I just like it to be prepared correctly.
So you ordinarily put the balsamic on before the whipped cream or after?
Yeah, I put it on the. I like to have it sit on the straw. You could actually marinate it in the strawberries if you wanted to as well. In fact, if you want to make a salad out of the strawberries, put it with some arugula. Just use straight balsamic vinegar and a little bit of olive oil. Arugula and strawberries together are great. A lot of people look at strawberry. You know, America's a funny place. We're a sweet, salty country. You go to other parts of the world and they're more bitter, especially in Europe, bitter and sour. And those flavors are much more prevalent in their cooking. So something like a strawberry or chocolate's a good example. We have a tendency to think that chocolate is all about dessert and candy bars, but in other parts of the world, chocolate is used as a savory ingredient in many, many dishes. And I've worked with many chefs who think nothing of dropping a hunk of chocolate into a tomato sauce or some sort of a bean dish or a soup. So, you know, you have to expand your perception of what food is to understand it, I think, which is what makes cooking great.
I still can't believe you put pepper on the sundaes.
It's good. I'll make that for you next time you're over.
I'll have to try it. Yeah.
I'm ready to come with you and we'll have a celebration.
So did you say strawberries, arugula, and balsamic as a salad, those 3 ingredients?
Yeah, put some orange slices in it. That's
Watermelon too, it's good like that.
And some endive.
And cheese.
We put cheese in our cereal around here.
But watermelon is amazing with arugula and balsamic.
I just saw a recipe. It really wasn't a recipe. I forget what magazine it is. My wife buys them all. Slices of watermelon, with goat cheese on it and arugula and, you know, stuff like that. Some cherry tomatoes. We grill watermelon a lot in the summer. We serve it with goat cheese. It's a nice dish. Just salad, grilled watermelon salad.
Hmm.
Who are you that just asked that?
Me,
Yeah.
Marilyn Valencia.
Where are
My
you?
sis, I'm in Cleveland area,
Okay.
Rocky River. My sister lives in Wilton. How far are you from Wilton?
About an hour and a half. That's the Gold Coast down in New York. We don't think of those people as Connecticuters, but they are.
Have you, are you related to Mulberry in Buffalo?
Say
That
that
doesn't,
again?
do you know that restaurant?
No, but there's a lot of mulberries around. And
Okay, it's an amazing Italian restaurant.
Is it? Oh, well, next time we're through, we'll do that. We do a lot of traveling, so.
Okay, yeah, it's really amazing. It's because Mulberry is right, based on the street in Manhattan, right?
Right, yeah. Well, you know, it's funny because our restaurant is named Mulberry Street. Not only does it carry on the tradition of the Little Italy in New York, but here in our town was founded on the silk industry and a family called the Cheney brothers. In fact, I live in a Cheney house. And back in the 1800s, they were the world's largest silk manufacturer right here in town. And for about 10 years, they raised their own silkworms and they fed them mulberry leaves.
Oh,
And so, in fact, the mulberry tree industry in the late 1800s is a big industry in the United States. So we thought it went well with, well, we got Italy and we got the Dr. Seuss book that you can't read anymore. So
what's the name of your restaurant? My sister will have to go.
Mulberry Street. It's on Main.
Mulberry,
Yep,
of
right in
course.
the middle of Manchester.
Okay, Manchester. Yeah, my sister went to Worcester too.
I'm gonna be up that
Really?
way, so I'll have to stop and see it.
Please do. Please do. Make sure you introduce yourself. You can look at the small selection of Worcester pictures I have up.
Oh, really? Awesome. I'll tell her to look for it.
All right.
Did somebody make the dish Michelle was cooking at the same time?
She was?
Somebody was cooking at the same
didn't know
time, but I don't
someone
know
else
if, I have no idea what she was doing.
We originally were going to do it where everybody was going to cook. We said, let's do the first class where we don't do that. So we don't.
No, I was cooking kale chips because I have a killer kale crop right now. So
Oh, okay.
I love kale. I eat a
Oh,
lot of kale.
wow.
You want
I
to
love
see?
kale. Oh, look at that.
Oh, yummy.
Where do you live?
I'm in Arlington, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
We had a whole bunch of thunderstorms come through yesterday and everything just, it's growing like crazy right now.
I bet. Oh, that's great.
Right.
And I'm
Yeah.
excited that you told me about what you said about the strawberry arugula and balsamic, because I have
Oh, yeah.
a killer amount of arugula in my garden
Do you?
too.
Yeah, that grows like a weed. That's good when you grow. I love arugula.
Is it? Oh, it's super good.
Yeah,
It's good, yeah. And it is peppery.
Yeah.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
I've
Very
heard of
lovely.
pepper in blueberry pie,
That would work.
Oh,
but not strawberry.
Never criticize anything till you've tried it. Give it a shot, see how it comes out. So,
Okay.
I just had a quick question.
sure.
Was it Vermont? Which Manchester, Vermont? Where?
No, Connecticut.
Connecticut. Okay, great.
We had a guy that was interviewing for a job once who called me and he goes, where exactly are you? And I said, well, here's the street that then he goes, well, I went over the border into New Hampshire. And that was the end of the conversation. So
Yeah.
Oh,
right in the middle of the state.
Yeah, I grew up in Stonington and all parts of Connecticut, Norfolk and
Yeah.
Sharon.
We love Stonington. That's a great part of the state. We go there a lot.
Yeah.
full line right now.
Good.
Hey, Bob, how's business since the COVID restrictions have been lifted?
We've been lucky. A lot of our business is takeout, and we're a casual place. I think we're in a good location, and we've got a lot of local people that come in, and I think the success of our business has always been based on the fact that we're there a lot, and my wife and I are there when it's open most of the time. We take Sundays off. But we seem to have a good relationship with our customers.
Do you have an outdoor space for dining now?
Yes, we do. Yep, we have a patio out front. And go online, Google Mulberry Street, Connecticut, or Mulberry, Connecticut, and it'll pop up. You can look at the Yelp pictures. And it's an old building, but it's cozy and it's warm and it's a local place. People call it a Cheers type bar. So
I will say Bob brings to the restaurant and its decorations and furnishings the same care that he brings to food. And it's a charming little place.
thank you. Thank you.
Definitely gonna go.
I'm headed down there in about half an hour, so we'll see if we burned it down while we're gone. But anyway, any other questions?
No,
All
thank
right.
you.
What do you think?
I'm hungry.
Fabulous. Yeah, I wish I'd gotten some chicken today.
I guess I'm going to be eating it. So
Lovely.
Really great job, Bob. Fascinating.
thank you, everybody, for joining. Scott, thanks for coming on. And
Thank you.
if you have
Thank
any
you.
questions, you can reach us through the the internet. I'm on Facebook. I'm on our website, and you're certainly more than welcome. If you come in this area, please stop in and see us. Always happy to help with cooking.
Thank you so much, Bob. This was an excellent event. And thanks for everyone for joining and tuning in. And I hope you can swing by Mulberry the next time you're in the Hartford area.
All right, go Scots.